Hi there, and welcome to the Shure Creators channel, where in this series we're talking about podcasting. I'm Naomi Meller, the founder of the Skylark Collective and the International Women's Podcast Awards, and we're here today aboard the Boat Pod, where we're going to be taking you through the basics of starting a podcast. So you've had an idea for your podcast, developed your why, and you've nailed down the details. You're ready to record and put your incredible podcast out into the world, but you've got no idea how to do it. Don't worry, this one's for you. Welcome to episode 3 of the Shure Creators series on how to start a podcast. Today, we're talking about recording. When recording for the first time, one of your big decisions is where you are going to record your podcast. If you're lucky and you've got a bit of finances behind you, you might be able to come to a place like the Boat Pod. This is a wonderful recording studio, and if you've got the option to have your podcast professionally recorded, this is a great choice. You'll have an engineer at your disposal, and you probably won't need to get into the nitty-gritties of learning how to record. Learning to drive a sound desk isn't something that you'll learn in 5 minutes, so if you've got this available and someone can help you, definitely take it. But chances are, if you're watching this video, you might be a DIYer. Don't worry, most of us are doing at least something ourselves, and learning about recording doesn't have to be a big scary prospect. If you're interested in capturing the best audio possible, Shure have created a guide to this, which you can find in the links below. It's really useful and really comprehensive, and it's well worth a read. Firstly, for DIYers, we'll tackle remote recording. Pre-pandemic, remote recording was definitely seen as the poor relation, with a really noticeable difference in sound quality between podcasts recorded at home and those produced in a professional studio. Suffice to say, when the world turned upside down, the audio industry did too. With everyone stuck at home and utilising video calls a lot more, the audio industry has really upped its game to help podcasters recording remotely create incredible sound in a way that was not possible before. Remote recording no longer has to be seen as the second best option, which is great news for new podcasters. The key take-home message here is that environment is key. It is far easier to spend a bit of time before you record creating an amazing environment for sound than to try and correct it afterwards. It's really, really difficult in particular to get echo off a recording. So thinking about the room that you're recording in is one of the key things if you are remote. When sound bounces around, it creates echo, and sound bounces off hard surfaces. Kitchens are a nightmare. Tiles are a nightmare. And echo is really difficult to get rid of. Soft furnishings are your friend, so think cushions, think duvets, think blankets. You want to get cozy, get comfy, and get your guest to do the same. It sounds ridiculous, but a lot of podcasters record in a cupboard, and for people doing voiceover, you'll often find them with a blanket over their head. You can offset a lot of these things with a good microphone, but creating a good environment will really help you, and it's definitely an important thing to think about. You'll then need to plan how you're going to capture your audio. The basic tenets of recording are a microphone and a DAW, not a DAW, a DAW, which stands for Digital Audio Workstation. It's basically a techie way of describing a computer, some software, or an app which you can use to record and edit your audio. You'll see this acronym and you'll hear it being used in the podcast industry, so DAW is definitely worth knowing. When choosing your microphone, there's 2 things you need to know. The first one is whether it's an XLR or a USB microphone. I can see you thinking, what? An XLR is just an industry standard cable that connects a microphone into professional sound equipment. It comes from the music industry. But if you're a newbie podcaster and you're using your laptop, you probably want a USB microphone. A USB mic allows you to connect to your phone or laptop without the need for an audio interface. But you can only usually connect one mic to one laptop. So if you've got more than one guest or host or contributor, you'll either need a mic and a laptop each, or you'll need XLR cables to plug into an audio interface with multiple microphones. The second thing is dynamic versus condenser microphones. Either one will work for podcasting, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both. This is kind of a complicated area, so there's a bit more detail in the Shure Guide to Podcasting. We're now going to show you a few different microphone options. The first one is the MV7, which is the mic that I'm talking into now. This is a mic designed specifically for podcasters and will give you brilliant studio level quality sound from your home. It comes with both USB and XLR inputs, and in USB mode has loads of clever features made with podcasters in mind, such as auto level, which keeps your volume nice and consistent, and presets to help you achieve the type of sound that you're after. It connects directly to your phone or your laptop without the need for an audio interface. Next comes the MV88. This little microphone is wonderfully versatile and nicely inexpensive. You can use it to record voices in a quiet environment, or you can head out and about to record. It's small, handy, convenient, and quick. I absolutely love it, and I use mine loads. There's a guide to using the MV88 below. If you're thinking of having a podcast with multiple hosts or guests in person, then XLR connectivity may be the way to go. Most computers have a hard time handling multiple USB connections, so in that situation, it's safer to get an audio interface and use XLR connections. We can't talk about XLR microphones without mentioning Shure's flagship mic, the SM7B. This has been adopted by industry-leading podcasters and really sets the standard. That said, it's not a microphone for beginners. You need a bit of experience and you do need to know what you're doing. The setup is a little bit more complicated and it's a little bit more expensive. But if you want true quality and you want to sound like you're in a studio, then the SM7B is for you. So you've got your microphone, but this isn't where it ends. What do you do next? Where does your signal go? And how do you get it recorded? There are now quite a few dedicated software platforms out there for recording your podcast remotely. I've used CleanFeed, Squadcast, Riverside, and Zencaster. They're all really good. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them you don't, but take your pick. They're all being constantly improved for podcasters like us to create great audio. It's incredibly simple on these platforms to create a link for recording, which you then send to your guest. They log in and you hit record. Some of them offer in-house editing and audio production as well as an addition, so it is super easy to create a brilliant sounding show. So that's your primary recording, which should give you one track for each person's voice on your recording. A track is just the audio file of a voice. Each person needs one individually. You don't just want one track for 3 or 4 voices. It becomes too complicated. When you're recording remotely, you will need at least 2 ways of capturing audio, because believe me, things will go wrong. You will lose your audio at some point, we all do. The internet crashes, your computer crashes, your guest's computer spontaneously combusts, you get the picture. When that happens, you'll be really grateful you made a backup recording. The easiest way to do this is to use a smartphone. With Shure microphones that plug into your phone, you can use the Motive app for recording. But for guests that don't have this, the simplest way is just to use the voice recorder app that is now inbuilt onto every smartphone going. On iPhones, it's called Voice Memos. On Android, it's called Voice Recorder. If you search on your phone, you will find one. It'll be there somewhere. All you need to do is get your guest to hit the big red button to get it going, set it down beside them, and leave it running until you've finished your conversation. If they've got any kind of little microphone that plugs into their phone, all the better. And lapel mics are brilliant for this. Shure have the MVL Lavalier, which is an amazing little mic, and that is really portable and really easy. You can post them out very simply and then get your guest to post them back to you afterwards. Once you've recorded and you've got your audio files, you need to think about editing and post-production. How tightly edited do you want your podcast to be? Do you want to remove all of the ums and pauses and little vocal tics that people have? Because believe me, they have them. Do you want to add music to create beautiful soundscapes, to make your episodes sound sharp and a little bit more complex? Or are you going to immediately release what you've recorded, live and uncut, as it were? It's worth thinking about this in advance so you get consistency amongst your episodes. Everyone is different, and the style, tone, and aim of your podcast will probably dictate how much editing and production you need to a certain degree. Again, it's the choice between doing it DIY or using an editor, and there's also various options depending on your budget. There's free editing software on Mac that's called GarageBand, and there's free software on Windows called Audacity, which you can download online. If you've got experience in music and you're used to using Adobe Audition or Reaper or Pro Tools or Logic or any of the above, then you'll probably be pretty adept at editing. But there's lots of information and free video tutorials on YouTube or anywhere else you care to look. I really like Hindenburg because it's made particularly for voice recordings and podcasters. It's really intuitive and it's really easy to use. For many podcasters, Descript is an absolute game changer. This gives you a transcription as well as your audio track and can make editing really, really simple and straightforward if you're a beginner. As with a lot of things, there's no right answer and there's a lot of editing software options. You just need to find the one that's right for you and the one that you find easiest to use. Before we go, a brief mention of live audio social media platforms. You may have encountered Twitter Spaces on your travels, or Clubhouse, or Fireside. Spotify have recently launched Spotify Live, which is their live audio streaming option. These are new, emerging options that many podcasters are trying out. They're a bit of a watch this space option, and they are very new. So that's a run through recording and editing. Next time, we're going to talk about how to get your wonderful podcast out into the world. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell below to be notified when the next video in this series is out.